welcome to another episode of the ACP podcast. Today I'm joined by Marten, our film section editor.
Hey y'all.
My name's Chalkey, I'm the editor-in-chief, and for the first time we are welcoming our newest staff member, Lana. Lana! What? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
All right.
Based on the comments, we'll decide whether we do that regularly or if that should just be a one-time gag.
If by one-time gag you mean...
Once every time we do the show? Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, the gag doesn't really work if you only say her name one time. That's kind of the point.
No, I meant just doing it the one time.
Well, thanks for killing the joke, guys.
No, you don't kill... It doesn't kill jokes anymore. You know, it's a trend to actually explain the joke now that makes it funnier.
See, more people will get it, and that increases the radius of people who understand the joke.
All right.
The joke becomes funnier.
All
and
right.
by explaining it, I'm also belittling your intelligence, which is also funny.
Okay.
Anyway, so all right. Today we wanted to talk about sequels. So as just a quick icebreaker, I wanted to go around and just ask everyone, what is your favorite sequel to a movie? Possibly one better than the first, possibly one that just really jumped out at you for some reason. What do you think, Lana?
Actually, one of my favorite sequels was Aladdin and the King of Thieves, which was the third installment in the Aladdin Disney video series.
King of Thieves was pretty awesome.
It was
but I was probably like 8 when it came out.
Definitely.
Same. I was quite young. I loved Return of Jafar. It was scary, but King of Thieves just hit all my buttons for me, more than the original movie. Objectively speaking, the first movie is clearly the best one.
Well, yeah.
But growing up,
Yeah,
Aladdin and the King of Thieves, I broke the VHS. I watched it so many times.
I was thinking, like, how do you break a... Oh, yeah.
The film
that happens.
snaps.
It sort of wears out, doesn't it?
I completely misunderstood at first, and I thought you were just like, there are no videos that will be as good as this one.
I must destroy it.
That
It
would
was
have been
the one VHS.
Granted, that's something I would do now, but at age 9, I wasn't quite thinking that awesomely yet. I had a ways to go. But at the time, Aladdin and the King of Thieves was my absolute favorite, and I watched it more and I loved it better than all the other ones, including the animated series, which I also watched fairly religiously. I was quite attached to the Aladdin franchise.
As far as that animated series go, that one was pretty good.
The animated series is wonderful, but the King of Thieves is just great.
What made King of Thieves?
Speaking with vocabulary I lacked as a grade schooler, it attached an importance to the backstory of a character who all we know is that he's poor, he's parentless, he's alone except for Monkey, and he saves everybody and gets a girl at the end. We know more about Jasmine.
Except for Monkey.
Except for Monkey. Abu is not a person. I mean, he's a person, but, when I was small, I was like, oh, he's clearly, the stuffed animal that I go to sleep with at night. I was a dumb child. Leave me alone. Stop judging me.
Anyway, Marten, what is your favorite sequel?
For my favorite sequel, it's kind of a toss-up between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Just because, I'm a Star Wars fan. Empire Strikes Back is clearly the better film, but Return of the Jedi just makes me happy. Return
of the Jedi, hands down, pretty much exactly what you said. It just makes me feel better.
Yeah, it makes me feel good. It's got... Well, crap, I can't even say the musical cues, because I love the musical cues from Empire Strikes Back better. Particularly the Asteroid Field music.
And if you buy the remastered version, Hayden Christensen jumps in. But that's pretty cool.
No, he doesn't. What are you talking about?
Who's that guy? In the...
No, I know it happens. It makes me sad.
It makes me happy.
Because it makes him sad?
Mostly because it makes you sad. pretty much.
Someday I'll be doing the firing. What about you, Chunks? What's your favorite sequel?
Going off the top of my head, and I realize I should have prepared an answer before I asked the question. The first one that jumps out to me is actually Shrek 2, and only because it's probably the only one I can think of where I have genuinely thought it was better than the original. I felt like the characters were fleshed out a little bit more. I thought the music was considerably more well done. I liked the message that movie brought forth. And at the very least, it's not Shrek 3.
Well, if you use at least it's not Shrek 3 as your standard, suddenly lots of things become bearable and fantastic. Wow, never would have thought.
Oh yeah, at least it's not the third. Yeah, that's legit.
Even Shrek 4 was better than Shrek 3. But
See, it bugs me that Shrek 4 is a thing. I never really got into the Shrek series after the first one, just because the whole thing is a money grab, because sequels generally are just money grabs.
They totally are.
But, I mean, even one of the sequels on our docket seems like a money grab, because, I mean, Peter Jackson only makes one type of movie, and that's trilogies. And that being trilogies that are longer than whole sets of other movies. So, with that, I think we can move on to the second installment of The Hobbit. When I went to see the second installment, I got a similar reaction at the very end. I went to see it with my girlfriend Denise, and I got a similar reaction to the end of this one as I had at the end of the first one. It's not over yet? They're ending here? Because I didn't actually know he was breaking it up, because I didn't know Peter Jackson that well.
They keep doing that thing where they split the last installment of something into 2 parts or multiple parts.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do that.
And I do agree
Twilight
with
did
you
it.
guys. It's very obviously a money grab. But that doesn't mean it's only a money grab. I'm not trying so much to defend the money grabbiness. It is the nature of the beast. And knowing that's the nature of the beast, okay, where do we go from here? I do personally think, as somebody who is ridiculously obsessed with everything Tolkien, that could have done this very easily in 1 or 2 movies. I think it would have been sufficiently fleshed out with all the extras from the appendices and certain bits of background brought in that would have given it that extra sense of history and vastness of scope that I've come to expect from Peter Jackson. Good cinematography, good pacing. It's too much that is stretched out. It's gone thin, like Bilbo at the end of his life. It's a little bit too much butter scraped over too much butter.
Yeah, there's definitely some pacing issues in both films, but I mean, I kind of had that problem with Lord of the Rings in general. I've never finished any of the books except for Fellowship, because it just, I couldn't do it.
Really? Two Towers is my favorite novel.
I'm a very bad nerd in that I couldn't really get into the Lord of the Rings movies. I'm all about all of the worlds that they've inspired, but I just couldn't really get into the originals.
You can write an entire
same here.
book about the nature of derivative fiction that comes from Tolkien's invention/reinvention of the fantasy genre as we know it in the modern world.
I think several people have. Maybe.
Yes,
So
and you
it
can
would be,
still write more because there's
several.
that much room for it.
A derivative nonfiction about derivative fiction, and as anyone who has read my IS knows, everything's derivative at this point.
Well, Tolkien himself was derivative. I mean, he took so much almost directly from the Eddas, from the Ring Cycle, if you know that opera. Just there's so
he
much.
got the trademarks, which is why we can't have Balrogs in D&D.
But you have
or
orcs.
Hobbits for that matter.
But you have orcs.
You can
and
have
you have
orcs.
halflings, which is
Yeah, you can
basically
have-
just another word for hobbit.
Pretty much.
So
Martin, you do realize we now have fans that don't know what an IS is, right?
Yeah, sorry.
We finally
Basically
we finally gotten to that
the
point.
undergrad version of a dissertation. I wrote it about The Office and the mockumentary genre, and I actually got a good on that assignment instead of a superior, because they said that my assignment was a little derivative, which means he clearly didn't, read into the whole thing, because that's sort of the point. But
that's
whatever.
pretty hilarious.
Whatever. I'll take it. What was I gonna say? Something about dragging its feet. Oh, what's even left for the third Hobbit movie? I mean, they're gonna kill the dragon. He comes into the town. He burns the town. They shoot him.
Spoiler alert! Battle of 5 armies.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing. But I mean, I'm hesitantly excited, because it can either be, like the Return of the King, where a lot of stuff was dragged out and there were a lot of cool action scenes and then like 5 billion endings, or the whole movie can just be action, 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 end, like the Transformers movie.
I
Like most
suspect that
movies.
it's going to be a little heavier on the action, considering that they changed around the editing between movies 1 and 2 based on the reaction that they got, which actually upset me, because it messed up the pacing as far as I was concerned. It was just not uniform at all.
Yeah.
So expect a lot of action scenes, but also, like Return of the King, expect loose ends wrapped up. Unlike Return of the King, expect lots of tears. I will trigger warning, spoiler alert, even though this book is 80 years old.
Well, I mean,
Expect lots of tears.
I think that's
They've
fair
had 80
because
years
a
to
lot of
figure it
people
out.
might not have read the books that might be going to see the movie, and I'm for one did not read the books. I saw the old cartoon, but I think that before we move on to our next topic, because we've been going on for the Hobbit for a while, we need to save some time for our other stuff today. I want to briefly touch on um, its variation from the book. I've been hearing a lot of people who are more into the series than I am and know that it's a variation being very upset upon the addition of the female elf character
Thalia.
and other changes.
Her name is
Yeah, like
Thalia.
yeah,
Um,
I don't keep track of character names.
okay, fine. That's
It's
cool.
just the one person with the sword, the guy with the hair. Uh, I'll
This is
speak in
Peter Jackson's
tropes.
Middle Earth. When are they not people with hair? Long hair's kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean when I say the guy with the hair, I mean the guy with the hair, capital hair.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
What are you
Capitalized hair.
talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about, Brewski?
Whatever. We'll leave it alone.
What species is he? Man, elf, or dwarf?
One of the dwarves. He has the
Is
craziest
he the
hair.
king?
Oh, I thought you
No,
were talking about Marten.
He's not the
What is
king,
this
so
language
it's
he's
not
speaking?
Richard
What
Armitage's
species
sword
is
over
he?
the shield. Does he look like a starfish?
I don't know. I'd have to watch the
If he
movie
looks like
again.
a starfish, it's Nori.
Anyway, we got off topic. The
Right.
point I want to make is that, or I want to talk about the changes and how everyone else feels about the changes. I'm indifferent to the changes. I think whatever changes he made it enjoyable for me because I enjoyed the movie, and I imagine some of that has to do with what he added in. Of course, I can't speak from the other perspective. If he didn't change it, would it be better?
I can add my commentary on it. Obviously, I cannot and will not claim to speak for any or all Tolkien fans. I can only speak for myself. At first, I was very confused with the addition of Tauriel. That's the female red-haired elf. But I think Evangeline Lilly was right when she said you can't send people to a theater and half the audience is girls, and there is not a single female on the screen at all. That is ridiculous in today's day and age to have none of that representation. The Hobbit is a book from
Yeah, a little bit.
1937 aimed at his son Christopher when he was 8. So it's
Yeah,
one
The
thing.
Hobbit was pretty much a sausage fest. So yeah, that's a
But
good point.
But it's one thing when you're making that private story for your own male child as a father, and another thing when you're adapting that to the screen in 2013, 2014. You can't. There's a completely different audience in mind for that, and I do agree with Evangeline Lilly, and I'd like to also know that Evangeline Lilly herself is a massive Tolkien fan. And she herself wasn't overly thrilled with some of the love triangle BS that Jackson put her through. She was really wanted
Yeah.
to be true to, obviously not the book itself, since Tauriel is an invented character, but to the nature of how elf society functions in Middle-earth, in Greenwood, now Mirkwood. So she really cared a lot about trying to being true to the spirit of Tolkien's universe, even though it was new to the book.
That's good. Yeah.
That being said, considering the nature of certain dwarf elf relationships in Lord of the Rings, I at first was a little bit displeased. I was like, this is going to
No, we did this already.
eliminate. Yeah, exactly. It was going to eliminate the heavy symbolism placed on Legolas and Gimli. And then I was like, wait a minute. Basically, nobody else in the theater gives a shit about the symbolism between Legolas and Gimli, because I'm the only one who cares so much about 3 ages of dwarf-elf relations in Middle-earth. Everybody else just thinks it's a cool movie and doesn't realize the depth of animosity between the two cultures.
Yeah, that's cool.
Considering
So-
that we're in Peter Jackson fanfiction realm, that since the symbolism is inherently different in the movies than it was in the books, the symbolism present in Keely and Tauriel is going to be also different in its effect on, retroactively speaking, on how the movie portrayed Legolas and Gimli versus how the books and Tolkien's actual text portray Legolas and Gimli. In other words, they're no longer the same thing. They're kind of parallel tracks, both of which are based in Tolkien's original writings. That's how I reconcile them. I know that plenty of people feel differently.
So we've got a girl character. Boo, we only added her so we could have a romance subplot.
I felt very odd about that romance subplot.
Yeah.
I think that it actually has a bad effect on how women can be portrayed in media. Like, women are only there to have a romantic subplot. Are you serious? You know, can't we do something else? Don't women have narrative value beyond romance in heterosexual romance sequences?
We might
Come on.
have
Definitely.
to wait until the second movie to see how that romance subplot really resolves, because while it was hinted at, I don't think it was as explicitly romantic
It's as explicit
some
as it's
things
gonna
are.
get without it being
Yeah,
Arwen and Aragorn.
yeah.
It,
But
it was it
I
was
don't know.
it was
And there,
pretty explicit. They even used the L word, love, in poor Keely's delirious scene. It
Oh, I
it,
missed
it,
that bit.
it was
I mean, it's been a while
it's
since
pretty
I.
it's pretty obvious what's there. How it's going to be resolved is a separate issue from the portrayal of women as useful for only certain types of plots in media.
Yeah.
That's
All
it's a
right. Well,
different issue.
yeah, definitely good writing material that we should come back on, or if people want to throw in their 2 cents in the comments there. I think we should move on to another sequel that has come out in this sequel season before we run out of time in this podcast, because we're rapidly doing that. Um,
woo.
I
who
can talk
else?
about Tolkien for about 50 years, which is about
All
how long
right.
it took him to
We
write the
should,
Silmarillion. So
let's just give you your own podcast where you just talk about Tolkien forever and just see how long you can go.
until I fall
All right.
asleep, pretty long, but I get distracted by pretending to be a dwarf on Twitter, so maybe
Well,
not that long.
that's why we have multiple episodes.
Excuse me. I'll cut out my coughing fit. I'm not making a comment. I'm actually having a coughing fit. I apologize.
Please don't die on
Yeah.
the podcast. That's really
Anyway,
awkward.
that would be really awkward. Sort of a creepy last will and testament. In our little time left, how much can we say about Catching Fire? Who all saw Catching Fire? I went and saw it and was
I
really
did.
excited.
I
Sean, you
have
saw it.
only read the books. I did not see the
You have
movies.
only read. How did you feel about the writing of the books? Like, what do you think about that?
I thought
Like, what?
that the subject matter was very compelling, but the nature of the writing, I mean, it's very, without wanting to sound terribly obnoxious, it's very young adulty. It wasn't,
I am glad you
it wasn't
said that, because I
particularly
felt the same
heavy
way.
or deep. It didn't require that much reading into. You could understand it on the surface very well, and if you wanted to read more into it and start examining subplot and subtext, you could, which is actually a strength. But that means I didn't sit there and reread it 10 times over. I pretty much got it the first 2 times.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
glad you said that,
Very
because I felt
easily
the same way
digested.
about the writing of the books, that it's very juvenile, even though the subject matter is kind of cool and makes for a great movie, which is why I think that the films are better than the books. I feel like they've been able to delve a little bit more, and adding the visual sense
My
has been
my
great.
brother commented that it's a good story, but it's terrible writing. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure I think that the writing is terrible, but neither do I think that the writing
that it's
itself,
good.
as an art form, as writing a novel can be, is itself anything to particularly write home about. The
Yeah.
subject matter, though, is very compelling, and it's very, very timely, which is probably why it's captured the popular imagination so completely.
Yeah, it's been pretty nuts. But yeah, about the second one, I was very happy about its pacing. We've talked about pacing a bit.
Mm.
And one of the problems with the first movie is that they're building this world, they're talking about all these things, and finally, however many hours into the movie, it feels like, oh hey, we finally have the games, and suddenly the games are over. Um,
Yeah, that was definitely something I noticed a lot. And it almost felt like the first movie planned, like just went in assuming that the sequel was going to happen, just based on trends and how
yeah,
these moneymakers go.
That's a
Um,
fairly safe assumption, wouldn't you say?
yeah. Nowadays, yeah,
oh yeah,
definitely sequels
definitely.
are always happening now.
Um, I was happy with Hunger Games too. The I was granted I'm a huge Haymitch fan, and I was really upset that they took out like his most fantastic scene from the second movie, which is like Lana. Just so you know,
Mm.
yeah, they take out the part where they're training for the second Hunger Games when they know that it's coming eventually, and the part where Peeta and Katniss actually like check out the old tapes from
Oh
the 50th
yeah,
Hunger
I was
Games.
wondering what you're talking about.
And
Yeah, that they cut that out. I was disappointed too that they didn't leave that in,
That's a
because
shame. That's a shame. That's some really really great narrative meat right
yeah,
there.
and you get to see Haymitch as something besides the old drunk of the group, which in the books is a lot. It's a lot harder to see the diplomacy and the cleverness that he still has, and like that scene was necessary for his redeeming qualities, and to see him as this total BA and this person who actually knows a thing or two about being in a ring
yeah.
full of
And I think that they
teenagers
did
that will kill
do
you.
they did do a good job of developing him in general as a character, but yeah, keeping that scene would have been awesome. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in the deleted scene somewhere. I mean, they had to have shot it and just left it out for time,
That's
because
another thing
Yeah,
that's also a guarantee. The extended editions of all the deleted scenes that you want to see but left on the cutting room floor.
yeah.
yeah. Granted. I mean, I will admit that it's probably not the smartest thing in the world to have a PG-13 movie. You have some guy holding his intestines in with his arm as he's like shoving an axe in somebody's face by throwing it into a force field.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, they were gonna have to make some compromises with that scene, but it just like.
But they could have toned down the grossness.
Yeah, I mean, they could have left the intestines in his belly. That would have been fine.
The sentiment of Haymitch being a BA is all I really wanted.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to see young Haymitch just being this awesome.
But it also is what caused him to, turn to comfort at the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you can definitely in the book version, you definitely even knew, like, even as a small child, he showed signs of just like, I just can't stand the concept of the Hunger Games. Like when they were interviewing him, they were like, he was just like, this whole thing is stupid. This whole thing just is ridiculous. And in the Hunger Games, like when he was actually in the Hunger Games, he just was searching for the way out and searching for the border and just seeing how far that went. And
remembering who the enemy is and all that being a thing. Yeah, and that could have driven home that part, and remember who the enemy is. The other thing about, I'm going to come back to the pacings. Even though I'd read the books and I knew exactly what was going to happen, I was still, constantly freaking out and, gripping Denise's hand and being like, oh my god, it's about to happen. I know it's going to happen. What's it going to look like? But yeah, definitely had those moments. I couldn't go and see it again.
Very well.
Yeah, definitely.
The riot scenes were done very well,
yes,
and I think that was definitely something where the author planned on this being a movie to a certain extent, because that is something that the movie will do far better justice than a book ever could.
Definitely.
And just watching the actual catching fire.
Yeah, that was great. All right, we are just about out of time. We should
I
probably
wanted
wrap
to talk
things
about
up.
the parallels between Rome and modern America that she was bringing down in all these books.
Yeah, and there are images there too. Yeah, throw in your Rome parallels, because they definitely use that imagery in the cinematography and
as well they should. I mean, it's even in the name. Bread and
yeah.
circuses was very much a thing of the Roman Empire to keep the populace under control. This is basically what would happen if the circuses were forced, but have a very similar effect in that it's meant to control and also unify the masses. It's panem, the pan as in bread. It's not meant for Pan America. But of course, people have talked about the collapsing Roman Empire as it overextended in parallels to modern America, globalization, hegemony, and all those things. So I think that's another reason why it's very much captured certainly the older generation's imagination, even if 12-year-olds maybe aren't all that keen on the fall of Imperial Rome to notice that.
All right. Well,
we have a little bit more time, Martin.
We do. I just thought we were trying to keep it under 25, and we're at 25. So I don't know. Okay, it's cool.
No, we're at like 23 because that was before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You're fired. Don't miscount. And don't cut us off.
Next time on the ACP podcast.
Learn how to count.
Imperialistic hegemony.
We're writers. We don't count. I mean, wait. Hold on. Hold on. That has a second meaning that I didn't intend.
Yeah. Well, sadly, both of those are true. That's why we're doing this.
Oh, I just got it.
Why did you only just get it? Come on, kiddo.
Because I can
get on my level.
He was too busy being sad that he's fired and he won't return for another episode ever again.
Until the next one.
Anyway, was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about, just in terms of like what makes a sequel just as good as the original? There's things that we're sick of in sequels, things that make sequels worth having or not worth having.
I think sequels are good when they're actual, when they're asked for by the story leaving something out, or asked for
when there's material that is useful or certain narrative gaps that demand to be filled.
Yeah. Or not even necessarily demand to be filled, but, can be filled. Like, even just addressing another character's background, or addressing some other element of that world, not just, oh, hey, the story ended, and we want more money, let's make another one.
Well, yes and no, but certain narrative gaps make you scratch. Like, there are certain types of gaps that, like a fallen tooth where you kind of poke at it with your tongue and you can't stop doing it. Certain narrative gaps, you're just like, whatever, that's not really so important, who cares? And other narrative gaps you're looking at, it's like, but why wasn't this filled? Why? I'm gonna go look for 10 million fan fictions on this because this narrative gap demands filling and I can't leave it alone. Like, there's just
there are
just a
definitely
world of difference between those two.
There are definitely times when narrative gaps demand to be filled by a sequel, but I'm just saying that that's not the only reason to make a sequel and still have it, be justifiable and not just be, we want to make another movie so we can get another million because we know this movie works.
Yes, but likely it's going to be the last reason that drives it rather than the others.
It is.
Yeah.
How about Sherlock?
Can we not?
Oh.
Let's
what?
not.
You don't like Sherlock?
Nope.
And that's probably where we should cut it out.
Yeah.
Because now we're actually out of time. And
all right.
As much as I'd love to hear this, we just need to.
We'll save it for next
keep
time.
it short. So
all right, cool.
it needs to be able to upload.
Yeah, it needs to fit.
Thanks again for coming, everyone. Once again, I'm Chalkey.
I'm Marten.
And I'm Lana.
Those people also have names.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we know that we matter to you, oh fearless editor.
No, you Martin paused. He was like, "What is my name?" What is my name?
I couldn't remember if I was supposed to do something else.
You're supposed to clap.
You should know this. You've been fired at least 6 times.
It's really messed with my worldview. It's discouraging.
Aw, Chalky, he's traumatized.
What do you forget in your time off?
What?
The whole learning this process thing. Never mind.
What are you talking about?
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.